It's a new world, and it's going to be interesting to watch all industries be reborn. And starting from essential businesses first for the universe to rest a little bit. I know we've talked during this call a lot of different concepts, like we have investors, founders, we've talked about it from a business perspective. But I think for me personally, it always comes down to the human aspect of it and the mentality shift, because everything that we're talking about is possible because of this pause in time, pause in life, and this perspective and mental shift in people, in whether they're going to end up being customers, users, investors, lawmakers. It's a huge mental shift that's going to allow for more innovation to come. People will have a more open mind because none of us know what's to come. None of us expected this. So it's a little bit of an ego check to understand you don't know everything. You can't plan everything. You can't predict everything. Just sit and live one day at a time. Is it that way for all of you and your businesses? Do any of you have any long-term plans? Is it worth making any long-term plans right now?
I guess. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, quickly, and then would love to hear what you have to say, David. My entire business plan is a long-term plan. The approval cycle for an IUD is years and years, and requires multiple clinical trials. So it's funny that I mentioned earlier I've been able to connect more with people who are able to help guide me through that process of government approvals and innovative grants and other things. But at the same time, there's less certainty about what the consumer interest will be in a new IUD product 3 to 5 to 7 years from now. As of yet, it hasn't come up with any prospective investors directly, but it's an issue we'll have to address. But David, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think the general nature, art, and science of investing is inherently long. So we have to definitely think long in terms of 10, 12 years for the companies that we invest in. And how that really applies kind of at a personal level, it definitely shapes the mindset a little bit to think a little bit past it. And it's an interesting time because yes, we're a little uncomfortable, but that's why you see a bunch of VCs and investors state anti-fragile as a reference. So it's like you can deal with a little bit of discomfort. That actually plays a lot into how you handle adversity. And so, yeah, we're here for the long term for sure.
So yeah, I agree with that. You know, as an entrepreneur and angel investor, I'm always thinking long term, always thinking on the 5-10 year horizon. One tip for entrepreneurs is that investors are now looking for companies that has a 36-month runway versus the traditional 18-month runway. So companies now have to either raise money for a 36-month, survival horizon, or they need to become profitable by month 18 so that, they can survive. So what people are looking for now is resiliency and longevity, both from a human potential, but also from a business perspective. So I think any entrepreneurs that are raising with a 12-month runway, you might want to rework your numbers, consult with your finance lawyers to really make sure that your business is positioned well for the longer term.
So what are
I want to add something for Lisa. I was reading one interview from Jeff Bezos like a couple days ago, and he said like the one interesting thing. So when he's doing like his like strategy planning and the strategy thinking about Amazon and all this stuff, he says that try to plan everything in your company for a longer period. Let's say like for 7 or 10 years, because if you plan everything for 3 years, that's something that all companies do, and you plan exactly on the same terms like all your competitors. But once you will start planning on a 5, 10, 8, 7 years, you plan longer and you make different decisions. So that's how it works with OKR. That's something I learned from OKR, change your mindset. And this is very interesting, you know. So crisis and the coronavirus will go on, and we will stay anyway.
Yeah.
Harrison, do you think, given what's going on and with all of the new inventions and drugs, it's going to affect your application timeline or your processes?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Bahar. The money from the government for innovative grants, you would think would be shifting more dramatically than it is, maybe, towards antiviral development and coronavirus vaccines, in a word. But so far, there hasn't been any diminishment of interest from the grant advisors that we're working with. So I don't know what to credit that with, but so far on the government end of things, there's still support. Private investors, I think, and many of you just mentioned, are interested in a longer runway pitch, and because we're not going to be in the hands of consumers for a little while, there is actually some attractiveness to pitching a product that has to go through a little bit of development before it'll really ramp up and start generating revenue. So there's that to consider. Yeah, I hope that addresses your question.
That's an interesting one to watch to see if and when those changes will come down. And then also from the other side, for the FDA approval process, if they're gonna treat these types of like emergency drugs differently than, let's say, if you were ready to file your application, how long that would take. I don't know if anyone is a patent attorney. I'm not, but I know there's a lot of intellectual property problems going on because people are reusing technology during this time. So where do you all stand in terms of stepping up as founders, investors, whatever, and allowing or making available the technology or product that your company has with not having revenue like in mind as the first reason? Because a lot of people are stepping up right now, a lot of companies.
I think Harrison's case is a really good reason for VC and early stage investing because it's pre-rev. We invested in a company called Contraline or Contraline, depending on how you do it. It's just a non-invasive male birth control. But we understood kind of from the early investment that FDA approval takes 2 years. We know that there's that kind of J curve before you even become profitable. I think that's one of the best case scenarios for early stage investment, and that's exactly why we would need to kind of invest in a company like that. But yeah, I think we're used to those timelines in terms of longer term. But it's case by case, because if you're speaking about a technology, for example, those can kind of be ramped up and scaled in a different way. But that's why there's separate funds dedicated to kind of biotech areas and healthcare areas, and then there's other funds dedicated to impact and sustainability. There's other dedicated funds for certain other theses, and that's the beauty of it. I think early on is like we want to see these companies flourish, but we understand that simple concept of, look, it just takes time for product market fit, founder market fit, all these little things, these Lego pieces and things to kind of fall into place until it is a rocket ship. So yeah.
David, and maybe Lisa too, I always hear this, that as investors, you invest in the founders just as much as you're investing in the company, and not the person. The founder also matters. What's your opinion on that? Is there truth to that? What do you look for?
Oh, definitely. Lisa, you could start. I'll finish it, but definitely.
So it matters a lot. So here's an example. There's a company that I'm coaching and advising, and the founder lost 230 pounds. This is best being, by the way. it's like, okay, the amount of sheer will and discipline required for a human to transform like that for their life, they've proven to me they have what it takes to transform a business and to disrupt an industry. I mean, it's just so clear to me when a human has that sheer amount of will and discipline. So I used to be an athletic coach in college, so I coached the rowing team. You can read my article on Forbes. So I have a whole article that talks about, really, having a champion athlete mindset as an entrepreneur and how you lead teams and how you lead your life. So I look for discipline. I look for have their actions actually generated results in their life. And if so, I believe they could apply that to a business.
So what are some questions that you may ask? Like the weight loss is a really practical and big example. What are some questions that you ask to uncover maybe some adversity or that type of a challenge in their personal life to understand that?
Yeah, I also look at, have they gone through personal trials and challenges? I tend to not, I don't really fund trust fund babies who've had it easy because they're just going to spend the money. They don't know how, they haven't lived life, right? So a lot of there has been some trust fund babies that asked me to be an advisor that I've turned down because I was like, I can't help you. But I look for, questions like, how have they handled conflict? How have they handled adversity? I think that's probably why more than 50% of unicorn companies have an immigrant co-founder, because immigrants just naturally have had to go through cultural diversity, adapting to a new environment, learning a new language, reinventing themselves. It's just because I'm an immigrant. I was born in Hong Kong, moved to the States, when I was young, but I think that you do go through a whole lifetime of adversity. And I grew up in Texas, so imagine growing up in the South, right? As a Chinese kid that didn't speak English for the first couple of years. So that I think those are just things that people go through, and it could be in life or in business. I look for, does that person have the grit to rise up from that adversity, or to come out of that conflict and just be able to maintain, a positive mindset throughout all of that.
Yeah, because entrepreneurship is getting knocked down 10 times and laughing one time out of them and still wanting to get, fall down 10 more times for that chance of one laughter. So it's very true. I'm an immigrant too, and I think the adoption is very true. When you have to learn a new language, have to learn to live in a new place, you understand that life goes on and you move through it. David?
Well, I think everyone's going through that right now. I mean, we all feel like, I think everyone who hasn't felt like an immigrant probably now feels like an immigrant.
Everyone's facing adversity right now.
Yeah, the cool thing is, aside from kind of the weighted points that Lisa said, we have intro calls with tons and tons of startups. And, Upfront Ventures just did a big seminar, and they said in their last seminar that they have to make these decisions, or have made these decisions within the first 30 minutes of, meeting the founder in a pitch. And that's a very difficult thing to do because it's a 10-year relationship that you're establishing in 30 minutes. So quickly, a few things that I look at, and these are just kind of from my notes, is if the founder has already identified their superpower, and that superpower could be anything that gives them a significant competitive advantage over others. And although, that's a interesting thing to kind of position yourself, it's really, the founder truly has to have that superpower and that really unscalable, or that scalable unfair advantage. That way you can kind of understand that. On paper, it's one thing to have, serial entrepreneurship, but again, some of those grit, some of that those characteristics that it requires for adversity and such, that comes kind of later in the process, because after you're building your company, it depends how you react. It depends how you react to your first 3 hires. It depends how you react to your first 1,000 customers, and those reactions kind of get balanced with adversity. You can balance your company, but I think early on it's difficult. It's really difficult to make that decision early, because you may love the founders, but the business sucks, or the market sucks, or the timing sucks. But if that founder has definitely identified their personal superpower, that is what shines bigger than anything on paper. And that's what we look for.
So we have a couple of minutes. Why don't you guys describe and shout out 1 or 2 words of what it takes for a founder to be successful?
That's a huge question. And I don't know why I'm opening my mouth right now to start, but that's fine. I think, in my opinion, it's all about what really drives you as a founder to wake up on the morning. I had an interesting discussion this morning with a woman who is starting her own business, and she really is passionate about what she does. And she was looking to talk to other people and to meet other people in her space. And I think that's super important, to find what really motivates you and to hold on to that. So being passionate and having a plan. We talked about earlier about execution, but it's also about how you're going to do it. And it's not about just, oh, I love this and I'm going to start a business on that. I think to have the strength to go over the entire marathon of the startup life, you need to always be open to learning, to be ready to always be fighting for something, be reactive. And that's the key point. And right now, because we are kind of in a crisis, I think the best thing you can do for yourself is also to take care of your mental health and to take a step back, not take any rush decision or anything in the panic, because it's not healthy for you, for your business, or for anything, and decision might be regretted. So you need to think about the future and keep a positive mindset. And if it means for you having breaks, going for a run, doing some sport, or doing lots of live stream and social, like remote socializing stuff, fine. Everyone find their own balance, but I think it's important to right now just focusing on making sure that the business go through this alive, but also about yourself and not be completely broken at the end, because that's when you really need your entire energy to go to the next step.
Yeah, passion is the most important thing, and everything that you do right now, you're just feeding your passion and your fire, and that's what allows you this mental state of creativity. So a lot of advice, but I'm going to give you the word passion. Everybody.
To piggyback off of what Amandine just said, I think she mentioned positivity, and I think that's important, not just for your own personal reasons as a founder, but because that's your job as a founder, is to keep your team mobilized during this time. Like, people who are working for you guys or for different startups are probably worried. They're having lots of emotions. They're locked up in a room in their house. And I think our jobs right now are to keep them mobilized, to keep them motivated, to be honest with them about the future, but then also to encourage them and keep morale up. My team we actually just recently moved into an office a few months ago, and I just hired 2 people last month. And so it was a little bit of a weird shift because we've barely gotten to know each other in the office space, and we had to move to this new working environment. And I think, setting up one-on-ones, like just one-on-one coffee Zoom meetings and doing virtual lunches are really important.
Yeah, you definitely have to get very creative in your leadership style too. And it's definitely a change in leadership style. Harrison, Lisa, Alex, David.
I'd love to go before all the good words are taken. Being proactive, maybe, I think is important, and that builds on some of the themes Amandine was talking about a little bit. Being proactive, but at the same time being very comfortable with your plans, not not actually, with reality getting in the way of your plans. And we're obviously seeing that now. Who would plan for this 2 months ago, but still the value of having plans set out 2 months ago is incalculable. I think there's an Eisenhower quote or something. Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable.
Yeah.
I think that's the mentality.
And I'll add one thing to what you said right now, because it relates to an earlier point you made. Just not being shy and asking. Just reach out to people and ask for help, for advice, for anything. It's, you have to take the first step. If you want something, take a step, send an email, send a message, and try. Like, try hard.
Yeah.
You know, I think, I guess like the superpower for any founders on the one side, that's the superpower. But on the other side, this is our biggest weakness, is that if you and the founder, and if you choose a direction, you have to stay on this direction, no matter what happens around, no matter who will say you like something like, dude, it doesn't work, you will never succeed. You have to move forward. And if you move forward, if you stay focused, you will succeed. But sometimes at the beginning, we took the wrong direction. So, and nobody knows like what's the right direction, right? Sometimes different guys, different founders, they move forward like crazy, like trains, and you know, they came in the wrong point. And this is just the life, you know. This is what we call like the good chance, you know, from our side. But you know, like I personally, as a founder of the company, like a couple of years ago, I realized that my biggest superpower is to bring energy every day for my team. So I can go to sleep in the worst mood ever, like it was the worst day, but I know tomorrow I will wake up and I will be like 100% charged, full of energy, and I will bring all this energy for my team, just to be that empty and exhausted at the end of the day, to start over on the next day. This is what I can contribute for my team, you know, for entire team.
So
that's very important, you know.
That one is a really important advice, to always stay true to yourself. And that's in everything in life. Like if you feel and know in your heart, and obviously you should be smart enough to do the analytical thinking too, but you believe this is the right direction to take, nobody will know you, your goals, or your company better than you. Take the advice. To make up your mind, you have to consult professionals, take a lot of different perspectives and opinion, just so you can, you know, understand the problem, but don't drop your own direction just because. Like, really study it and be true. And if you choose to drop your own direction to go with somebody else's advice, understand that that was your choice and you did it, and not to have any regrets later. The whole point of staying true is not to have any regrets. So even the change of mind, if it's done consciously and in an informative way, you won't regret it.
But
so,
you know, you have to be super lucky that, you know, to take, right, you know, right direction at the beginning. Like, I'm sure, you know, like, to be lucky is the one of the peak of, you know, success startups. No, that's true. Listen, that's something how it works. All big companies, they're lucky, you know. They were launching the companies in the right time, in the right place, in the right conditions.
Everything kind of aligns, not just them.
I can say that even about our company. We launched our company in 2008, and it was like the perfect time to launch that. Like, couple years before, it didn't work. Couple years after, it didn't work.
David, last but not least, saving the best for the last.
I'm gonna just leave it to a couple words, actually. And I think what I've been telling founders most recently is, you know, create empathy. I liked Alex's energy, so I'll add that in there. Create energy and create value. Value is the most important part right now. And then, you know, what my personal thesis has been going forward since this happened is, I'm looking for opportunities in companies that are creating meaning, you know, creating meaningful companies. Everything's going back to basics. So those are, and thank you guys for, sharing about your companies. I always love to hear more, and I'd love to hear more about Case One. I don't know much about it, so I'm sure we'll sync up again at some point, but it's pretty apparent that you guys have already found some type of direction. But getting back to meaningful, companies and really basic values are what companies are going to, be successful going forward. But timing is a good one. I probably would have to go a long time on timing, but that's later.
I'll add my 2 cents. I think a team. I think it's a team that, not just a team that you hired, but a team that is aligned in your vision and believes in your vision. At least your immediate team, having similar values and a vision, not just the company, truly understanding and being passionate. You can do it with lower level, but there's nothing like having an amazing team where it's not just a one-way disbursement of energy. It's a team that you give and take with each other, and you excite each other, and you make each other passionate, because everybody has good and bad days. Everybody is good at a certain thing or has a skill set, and together that's much more powerful to have that one. What's the saying? One team, one dream. I think that's a powerful team. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I know this is last minute. It's such a pleasure to have these conversations where it's of our areas of interest. I learned a lot, and I will implement some of these advices. And I'm sure we'll keep in touch. It's a great way to also meet each other and see where we all end up after this.
Yeah, it was great meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Find me on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much, Bahar, for putting this all together.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bahar.
Bye.
Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.